listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a podcast where we explore what it's like getting older, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between. In this season of Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, we're covering topics related to vibrant aging. I'm your host, Cheryl Proska. Let's grow old together. On today's episode, I'm joined by Marlene Stocks, who is a certified senior move manager and the president and owner of Senior Transition Services. As a certified senior move manager, Marlene knows that moving from a person's current home can be an overwhelming experience. But with careful planning and the right support services to assist them, the emotional and physical stress of the move can be minimized. Marlene and her team at Senior Transition Services' goal is to make each transition as seamless and worry-free as possible. Marlene, welcome and thank you for being here. How are you today?
Thank you, Cheryl, for this opportunity. I am very well. All we have to do is look outside and see the vibrant blue sky and the autumn leaves, and just know that it's a lovely day out there. So thank you for having me as your guest today.
We're recording this episode at the end of October, which if you're listening in Pennsylvania, if you remember, it is a balmy October for us, which we're both, Marlene and I were just saying, we're both very excited about. So Marlene, for the episode today that you're joining me for, we're going to talk about relocation and downsizing, especially as it relates to older adults. So to get us started, I'd love it if you could share the story behind how Senior Transition Services came to be.
Well, Cheryl, 17 years ago, my husband and I saw a need to help support older individuals and their families as those individuals were looking to make a move out of their family home, probably of decades, and then typically into retirement living. And we saw the need to help them with a project plan and to guide them through this process because many of our clients may not have moved in decades. So they were a little rusty with the process, and we offered our help and expertise to make it easier.
I'm thinking about when we had to move my grandmother from her home, and we were lucky that she was willing to part with belongings. However, it wasn't easy, and we did it like as a family, which we'll get into later in the episode. Family dynamics. What can I say? So, in addition to what you just shared with us, what would you say is the primary mission of Senior Transition Services?
Well, the primary mission, Cheryl, is to try to help not just the individual who is moving, but also the family through this whole dynamic of getting their loved ones settled as easily as possible. And what we know is that change is usually difficult. Change can be daunting, it's emotional, it's frustrating, and sometimes it's just helpful to have another set of hands help you through that process of getting from their home of typically decades into a much smaller retirement community. And what we're looking to do is to provide that guidance and let the move be a more positive experience than what many times moves can be.
Mm-hmm. So, building on that, what are the primary services that you offer?
Well, we offer a number of services that I explain to our prospective clients in a complimentary initial consultation. And typically it starts by offering to do a furniture layout of their new home. So again, if we have a client who's leaving a home of decades, that's the classic 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs, and moving into a 2-bedroom apartment in a retirement living, we have to be really careful that the furniture that goes into that new home is going to fit. And not only that it fits, but that it's also safe. Because many times our clients who are older are walking with rollators and
Mhm.
walkers, and we have to make sure that there's enough of a path for them to get through. So we're guiding them to make sure that the furniture that they're selecting will work, and then we drill down from there. We drill down into the clothing that they will be taking with them based on the capacity that they have in the new apartment. In the old home, they may have 6 walk-in closets. In the
Mhm.
new home, they have considerably less storage space. So again, we have to be cognizant that space is of the essence. And then we want to talk to them about how they envision living in their new home. Will they still do the same amount of entertaining? Will they still do the same amount of cooking and baking? Will they still have the same hobbies, and continue them in the new home? And again, all of that within the parameters of space. Kitchens are smaller, rooms are smaller, and we want to make sure that what they take with them is going to fit so that they're not living in an unsafe environment.
Mhm. And something that came up for me is what I'm thinking, like future proofing, as far as in, like, for example, an assistive device like a rollator would go. Maybe you don't need one at this time. However, in the future, that may become a necessity. So, as you're doing your furniture layout, are we future proofing for if this type of situation does come up?
And we do. That is one of the
Mm.
key points of furniture layout, because we want to make sure that if a client is going to have some type of procedure in the future, maybe hip replacement, knee replacement, and they temporarily need a
Mhm.
walker or a rollator. They're fine now, and they hope to be fine after the surgery, but we don't want to have to redo a furniture layout because of the use of the rollator later on. So we
Mhm.
want to be proactive about that and be able to say, um, the furniture is set up fine for that need if that need comes to pass. Hopefully it doesn't, but we want to be prepared for it.
So, in preparing for our call today and looking at your website, I was able to glean that you offer a variety of different services. And I thought we could talk about each one of them to learn more about what your approach is and what the approach that some of our listeners might be able to take. First, would be on downsizing and preparing for a move.
So, like any preparing for any large project, there has to be a fair amount of prep work to be done. And downsizing is one of those huge tasks that is very time consuming. And if you do it well over a period of time, it doesn't need to be the downer that many people see it as being. And the idea of the downsizing is to be mindful of how you're going to be living in your new apartment, which is a difficult question to ask and then to answer because a lot of people don't know, and be able to select only those most important things in their lives that they can take with them, and then find good homes for everything else that they can take with them. And it's very emotional. It's where we spend a lot of time in helping our clients make those good decisions, and really only they can make that decision. Many times we have well-intentioned family members come and try to help, but I think it's just so empowering for the individual who's moving to be able to make those decisions, him or herself, so that there are no regrets later on.
And there are going to be situations that come up where you're going to need to be doing a sort of like a different type of project with content removal and or estate liquidation? How do you approach those situations?
Well, the content removal is then on the back end of the downsizing. So
Mm,
we're going to try to find good resources, good avenues for what to do with those items that are being downsized. First of all, it comes down to family. Will the family want any of those items, the furniture, the artwork, the dishes, and so forth? And our clients always are hopeful the family will step up and take those items. But in reality, more and more adult children don't want those items because they have their own things in their own homes already. And then the grandchildren are usually more transient. They don't want to be bogged down with grandmom's dishes. So now we come to a very emotional, painful point of the process. What do we do with those things when they're not accepted in the family as they were generations ago? I mean, we all have things in our homes that belong to grandmom and granddad, and that's not so much the trend nowadays. So we try to find outlets. If there are those vendors, like estate liquidators, that could purchase those items from our clients, or estate liquidators I just mentioned, or auctioneers.
mm.
There are auction houses that could potentially sell items for our clients, or they could sell them online themselves if they're web savvy through eBay and Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And all of those options have pros and cons. And many times, what a client has to understand is if everything can be sold, but it's how much time you're willing to invest in selling something and how much you're willing to accept for it. And that's where sometimes the disconnect is. The options are out there, but how much time are you willing to invest in trying to find a return on your investment?
And I'm in a different stage of life. However, I have all this baby stuff that I don't need anymore. And it's things that have been gifted from the baby shower and like nice expensive things. And I'm in a place where I'm thinking, how am I going to go about releasing these things? And how much time do I really want to invest in it? And do I want to put it on Facebook Marketplace and someone see that I'm selling this really expensive gift that they got me many years ago at my baby shower? So I'm all this to say that I'm feeling what other people are going through in a situation with trying to do their own estate liquidation and content removal.
Quite candidly, Cheryl, it's probably the hardest part of our job
Mm,
because because our clients value these things so much. It's part of their family legacy, especially when
mhm.
these pieces of furniture are handed down from generation to generation, and they almost feel that they're being disrespectful in not keeping it in the family. And that's where we just have to try to be the voice of reason for them and say, here are your options. And let's try to incorporate as much as we can into your new home. But the rest, we just have to find other homes. And many times, if
Mhm.
those items can't be sold, then they get donated to thrift stores. So the fear often is, I don't want my things to be thrown away. I don't want them to wind up in landfill. And we'll say, well, at least if we can't sell it, then potentially let's donate it. And that's where we spend a lot of time finding good charities that will accept the furniture and the dishes and the artwork. So someone less fortunate will be able to buy those items at a very inexpensive cost and use them in their own home. So their furnishings, our clients' furnishings, will live on somewhere
Mhm.
else. And that does bring comfort to them.
Absolutely. So we have gone through the downsizing, we've gone through the content removal, and now let's get into the organizing. And what could also come with organizing could be one of my biggest fears, the cluttered home. How can we declutter?
Well, if we're decluttering for the process of selling the home, then of course we often use the help of realtors to be able to get a sense of what kind of home, in their opinion, will sell the best. And so sometimes we do help in that capacity to remove the things that will make the home sell a lot more attractively. But where we spend more of our time, again, in that content removal phase of trying to help our clients make the good decisions of what to bring with them in the
Mhm.
capacity that they have. And we want to drill down then into areas like clothing, which is often a pain point, often drill down into the kitchen, often drill down into books,
Mm.
and be able to let them see this is the capacity that you have. Now it's your decision of how you're going to fill it. And that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of patience. And sometimes we've got to circle that a few times, come back again and say, all right, you did one sweep. Now let's drill down a little bit more. Because what we're helping them understand is a lifestyle change. We're helping them understand and appreciate that life in a retirement community will mean they don't have to do quite as much cooking as they may have done previously. So, therefore, if they're not making family dinners for the holidays, why would they think of bringing all those utensils, pots, plates, linens that they won't be using? And that's a hard thing to get past when for 50 years that's been your life.
Mhm.
So it's trying to make them understand that family dinners will likely be now held at the other family members' homes or in the private dining rooms of the retirement communities where they don't have to worry about the linens and all the china and the stemware and so forth. So it's helping them understand that there's a lifestyle shift going on. And
Mhm.
what they need in their kitchen is just typically what they need for themselves, if they're together with their spouse or with by themselves, of how are they going to be now managing breakfast, lunch. Dinner usually is done in the dining room of the retirement
Mm.
community. So you need less.
Would you prefer to age independently in your own home or live in a nursing facility? I know what I'd rather do. Friends Life Care membership offers just that. Plan today for a future lived at home with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience while protecting your savings. Learn about your options at a free seminar or webinar. Register at friendslifecare.org/register or call 215-628-8964. So we've touched briefly on the emotional side of these efforts. So I'd like to get more into that now and hear what your situations are with the maybe some of the common emotional challenges that older adults face during these transitions, as well as how you and your team help navigate through them.
When When I first started in the business 17 years ago, I saw myself as by designation, a senior move manager, which is what we are. My team and I are senior move managers. But what we've morphed into are really loss managers.
Mm.
So, as the back end of our work, we're helping them navigate through um, a difficult time of loss. They may have lost their spouse, they're losing their home of decades. They're losing a lot of their treasured possessions. They may have loss of mobility, loss of independence, loss of cognition, loss of hearing, loss of vision. This is not a great time for them as
Mhm.
they now make a significant move into a much smaller space. So we're trying to validate that for them and trying to give them um, some reassurance, trying to give them space, trying to help them make good decisions so that they can feel comfortable when they make the move. Empowerment, Cheryl, is really important here. We want them to feel that they're still in charge, even though they've got all this loss going on. We want them to feel that they're still in charge, that they're making their decisions. And often we counsel the adult children in that regard too, and let the adult children give their parents the space that they need to make good decisions. But then, of course, be there if they feel that decision isn't really a valid one and that they need a little bit of extra support from family to say, Mom, Dad, let's look at this a little differently.
And I mean, that's hard because you're dealing with multiple people who possibly think that they're right and they want things to go in the course that they've identified. And sometimes I'm envisioning the adult children want things to move a lot quicker than maybe the parent like is really resistant. So this goes a little bit slower. So I'm just thinking about that dynamic too. And that must be, so your loss managers, you're also like pseudo therapists in a sense
Sometimes
too.
we feel that way.
Totally.
Yes. Yes. We had a situation a number of years ago when a client of ours was going to be moving to Atlanta to live with her son.
Hmm.
And one weekend, the son and his son came to the Philadelphia area, and they were going to help mom prepare for the move. So what their task was to clean out the basement. Okay. I met with the client on Monday after the weekend's work was done, and she was in tears. And I asked her, I said, Why are you crying? Your son and grandson were here and they helped you with the basement clean out. And she said, Yes, Marlene, but when I went down this morning, I was looking for my Christmas decorations and they were gone. And that brought out the tears. So while the son and the grandson clearly had the best of intentions, let's clean out the basement, likely my client did not have a lot of decision making capability. The things were just tossed. So there's that tender balance there, wanting to help. And again, coming from out of town, timing was of the essence. But then there's that also, gee, mom, do you need this? Do you want this? Which sometimes adult children may not have the patience for because it takes time. The mom's got to look at this and decide what she wants. And then there's a story with it. And you're thinking, I've got a lot of stuff to do here. Let's keep this going. So it made for a little bit of a sad meeting with her.
So how do you balance the like honoring your client, the older adults in this situation, like their attachment to their belongings, while also like really what you're there to do is guide them through the downsizing process. So how do you manage both of those things?
The best way to do it is to have the benefit of time
Mm.
because those hasty decisions will always be made when the timeline is very accelerated.
Yeah.
And so the best advice that I can always give to individuals who are contemplating a major move or a downsize is to give yourself a lot of time and not do this in the course of a weekend or a week and expect you're going to nail it perfectly.
Oh.
So the more time you give yourself in anything, the
Hmm.
more in any process, in any project that you have, the more time you have, the more likely the results are going to be a lot more agreeable, and you'll be able to live with them. But haste makes waste. So if you start this downsizing process early, even if you have no intention of making a move, then you have the benefit of time on your side. So you can do a little bit, set it aside, come back to it next week, do a little bit more. And again, you're making much better decisions because you have that benefit of time. And you can revisit things and say, gee, initially I thought I would need this item. I would need this piece of furniture, or I would want this piece of artwork. And then after you cycle back a second time, you say, what was I thinking? I don't have that attachment to it anymore. I can let it go. But the decision of letting go needs to come from the person in transition, not the well-intentioned family member.
Mhm. So, we've again like started touching on this. I do want to drill down more with what tips can you share for seniors who are feeling this anxiety? They're feeling resistant, they're feeling tension around the idea of moving. How can they start mentally preparing for this big life change?
By starting the process now, starting the
That's
process
key.
early, even if they have no intention of moving in the next couple of months.
Mhm.
But you start the process early to help avoid a crisis. When you do this process in crisis mode, it is it is even worse. It's even
Mhm.
more emotional. It's more daunting. It's more taxing. So if you have a plan, like any big project, if you're planning a daughter's wedding, you don't do that a week before the wedding date. Not if you have, you know, very specific plans in mind. This is something, it's a project that needs a lot of time. And
Mhm.
it's the same thing with preparing for a new lifestyle. So you start early, you visit communities that are in your neighborhood that you think you may want to move into, kick the tires, put your name on a priority list, and work toward a goal that maybe in a year or two you'll make this move, and then start to prepare your own possessions and start to go through your own home, the closets and the cabinets and the drawers, and start small and keep going with the task at hand, and just keep downsizing, keep minimizing, get rid of that low hanging fruit, the stuff you don't need anymore and it's just cluttering up your life.
And you're so right. Moving is quite possibly one of the most significant life events. And it does not necessarily get the attention that it deserves. And I mean, I've moved a few times, and yes, we've done preparing, but that day of the move it's always chaos for like in my experience. And I think it is because it all comes down to that weekend of the move. And I can't say that I've treated it necessarily as significantly of a life event as I should. So this is definitely a learning process for me.
It's it is cumbersome. It is daunting. It's emotional, and especially when you're leaving a home that you've had very good memories of.
Mhm.
And that's why if you're prepared, if any task that you're undertaking is going to be a lot more successful if you put the time into the organizing of it. And that's why even if you have no intention of moving into a retirement community now, you can still go through a junk drawer and clean out a junk drawer. That
Mhm.
takes you what? That takes you half an hour to clean out a junk drawer, or your sock drawer, or your t-shirt drawer, or your spice cabinet. All things that are easily done. And the nice thing about it is that after 30 minutes, you look at that drawer, you look at that cabinet, and you say, oh, I just made improvement here. I'm successful. That then gives you the motivation to go on to something a little bit larger. But you don't
Mhm.
start the process by going into the attic or the basement or the garage, because that's just way too daunting. So you
Yeah.
need to kind of work your way up to it a little bit more, and work with the right people that will be supportive, not the ones that say, Mom, throw everything out, but the ones that will allow you to go through a corner of the basement or a couple shelves in a closet and make some good decisions, and then call it a day and pick it up another day. That's why you want to give yourself the benefit of time to make those good decisions.
So speaking of, bringing your supporters for this and going back to my comment earlier about family dynamics, how do you engage the family members of your clients who are the older adults in your process?
Well, it we include them as much as they want to be included. And sadly, Cheryl, there are those adult children or family members that would like to be part of the process and can't be because they live remotely, or their time, their professional lives, and their family lives won't let them be as part of the process. So we can include them by the benefit of technology nowadays, just like we're using technology today in
Mhm.
order for them to be a part of the process and to encourage them to be supportive and to talk to their parents, typically in a way that good decisions are made. And what we also need to remember again is that it's the decision of the individual who's moving to decide what to take and what not to take. And it doesn't help when adult children, well-meaning, of course, swoop in for just a couple of hours and then hope that a massive amount of downsizing will be done. That just heightens the tension and the pressure
Mhm.
of the process. So again, the benefit of time, starting the process early, doing it gradually, and collecting the success, because that gives you then the motivation to continue and say, yeah, I can do this. This looks pretty good. I cleaned out this one bookshelf today. That wasn't so bad. I think I'll do another one next week. So that's what you're looking that's what you're looking to achieve, and that's what I try to communicate to the adult children. Let's be supportive and let's not do everything like in 30 minutes.
Right. So I know that I'd love to hear about a story or a story or two about this, when your services really made a significant impact on a client and a family.
Oh my gosh, Cheryl, there are so many. We become so close with our clients in transition. We often become like surrogate daughters to them. And my team will hear so many lovely emotional stories of being helpful when the client needs the help and when the family can't be around. And it's at the end of the process that makes us feel, well, we accomplished something here, not just for the family member, but also, I mean, not just for the person in transition, but for the entire family as a process. Um, we we work a lot with with clients who have health challenges. And when we can specifically make the process a lot easier for them, then we feel that we've accomplished something very, very, very significant.
Are you comfortable sharing the story about the man who had donated his wife's wigs with the audience?
Yes, and thank you for remembering that. We had a gentleman whose wife had passed away, and she was clearly a patient who had received chemotherapy and or radiation therapy because of her cancer, and as a result, lost her hair. And to compensate for that, she had quite an extensive wig collection to help her feel better. We knew after her passing, and we helped the gentleman move, we knew of the wig bank at the Asplund Abington Jeff Cancer Center. And we donated some 30 wigs from this gentleman to the wig bank. And the wig bank accepted them so enthusiastically. They're going to be laundered. They are going to then be made available to lower income women who are undergoing treatment and who may not have the ability, financial ability, to purchase wigs, plural, to
Mhm.
help them with their own image. So they were donated to Asplund Cancer Center at Abington Jeff. And when we told the client this, of course, he was very, very pleased. And the social workers that accepted the wigs were also so very pleased because they knew that his generosity, his donation would help others who are going through a similar situation that his wife went through. And so these are the types of opportunities that we're looking for to be able to take the things that our clients no longer need or want and put them into the hands of others so that those items will still be useful and helpful to others going through a difficult time. And
And
that works also like with pet rescues where we're taking linens that can't be donated to a thrift store because maybe they've got a little bit of a spot on them or a little bit of a hole or something like that. So we donate them to pet rescues. I just had a woman from Wet Nose Animal Shelter stopped by last week, and she must have picked up 10 bags
mm.
of linens that we had. And she was so enthusiastic because they put them in the kennels and little little animals who need to be adopted and then can snuggle into these older blankets, older towels, and so forth, and feel safe too.
And that it can be emotional, I imagine, to for whatever reason your family members they just not interested in your things in these things. However, hearing those two stories about how enthusiastic charitable organizations are to receive these items, that like that would make such a difference to me. And I know like the older adults in my family, if we could just reposition the experience in that way, I like that must make the biggest difference for people.
It does because especially if we're working with older individuals who have come through tough times and they realize what it took for them to collect a
Mm.
lifestyle of items that they cherish and they don't want it to go into landfill. They want to share that with others who will appreciate it. And that's why donation becomes such a great option for them and for us, that we're constantly looking for those opportunities to be able to share things that the family no longer needs. I have another example for you. There's a charity in Minnesota that recycles used hearing aids. Well, we
Wow.
come across hearing aids all the time when the individual is no longer here to
Mhm.
need the hearing aids. They're very expensive. So they get sent out to this Sparky foundation, and they then repurpose them and get them into the hands of individuals who can't afford them. And now they have more of a better life experience because now they can hear better. No, so it's just trying to share the items that our clients have with someone else. And we just happen to be the conduit to do that for them.
So, Marlene, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they are interested in learning even more about your services?
Well, we'd be delighted if they would call us. Our office number is 215-947-5490, or they can find us on the web at www.senior-transition-services.com. We service the greater Philadelphia area. And if any of your listeners are looking for a similar service in another part of the States, we can put them into contact with the National Association of Senior Move Managers. We have move managers all over the country. We're a member of that organization, and they can find a move manager through that website also.
Thank you. That's very generous. So before I let you go, is there any final advice that you'd like to give older adults or their families as they navigate the aging process and life transitions regarding making a move?
Just to start the process early. When you have the benefit of time, decision making comes a lot easier. And when you don't have the benefit of time, you make hastier, maybe not the best decisions because of the pressure of time. And to look around your area and see which communities might be a good fit for you, and start to kick the proverbial tires, if you will, and check them out and see if there would be a fit there. Not for tomorrow, not necessarily for next month, but maybe for in a year or two, and not wait for a crisis to motivate that type of a major decision. You want to be empowered. You want to do it yourself. That's what most of our clients want. They want to be in charge, and the best way to do that is to be proactive and start the process early. And we'd be delighted to help in any way that we can to make that decision easier for them, and that transition also flow better for them.
So, Marlene, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your expertise in relocation and downsizing as it relates to older adults. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, for a platform to be able to share what we as a team do for our clients in transition. And hopefully some of these suggestions will help those of your listeners make this transition easier for them. So again, I'm grateful to you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a unique program focused on aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience. You can find links and show notes from this episode on our website at friendslifecare.org/podcast. Thank you to Marlene Stocks for joining us today. You can learn more about Marlene and senior transition services by visiting senior-transition-services.com, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And thank you to Nick Dieterding for editing all the Honestly Aging episodes. If you like our show, please rate, review, subscribe, and join us next time. To learn more about aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience, subscribe to our blog at friendslifecare.org/blog.